recorded. Okay, Jamie, would you like to open the festivities?
Yes, thanks, Rick. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Quiet Transition, Leading by Example in Quiet, Clean Landcare. We are delighted to have all of you and our speakers here today to show what they're doing to make this movement happen, make social change happen, etc. My name is Jamie Banks. I'm the founder and president of Quiet Communities. We are a national nonprofit. We're now 9 years old. Started working in the Landcare area because of noise, pollution, and other health and environmental impacts, and have and our collaborator is the American Green Zone Alliance. I do want to mention them. Unfortunately, Dan Mabe could not be here today to join. So with that, I want to hand it to Matt to introduce himself, and then I'll be giving a quick introduction immediately following that.
Hello, everyone. It's so good to be here with all of you this afternoon, if you're coming from afternoon or morning. Or my name is Matthew Tate, and I'm a senior at Boston University, studying environmental analysis and policy. Today, I'm very, very excited to be accompanying Quiet Communities today to share with all of you the quiet transition, leading by example in clean, quiet land care. I first started working with Quiet Communities on creating this event this past September. Over the past couple of months, I've been conducting outreach, interviewing municipality leaders, creating MailChimp templates, and throughout it all, I could have not imagined a turnout like this. It's such an honor to bring together so many individuals passionate about sustainability and land care reform, and so I want to be able to take a moment to thank all of you for your attendance today. I also want to thank the speakers in panel for their hard work and perseverance over the past years in their communities to make these quieter and healthier, and for their witness and example you will hear today. Thank you again for your time and willingness to speak. Lastly, I would personally like to thank Professor Reepstein and Jamie Banks for their contribution and the support throughout this journey. We would all not be sitting here virtually today without them. I'm very excited to turn it back over to Jamie Banks.
So thank you, Matt. And Matt's been a wonderful student. And thank you, Rick, for giving us this opportunity with the class. And thank you to Boston University and, of course, our speakers. So I started out with this. I was a healthcare scientist. And in 2010, 2011, I noticed a lot of land care noise and pollution in my own community, and became very concerned about this, and really brought that healthcare lens to looking at those impacts and what it meant for worker health, public health, and environmental health. I started acting by working locally. We formed a town committee in the town that I live in, became a subcommittee of the Conservation Commission. I worked in that for 7 years. It was all around leaf blowers. But I then reached out to a lot of communities nationally and realized that this was a problem nationwide in literally hundreds of communities distressed by the noise and pollution. The second thing I realized, though, was that there's a whole industry involved here, and that we today have all these gas tools for everything that was once done manually. And this is causing a great deal of distress in communities, many affluent communities, but other situations as well. So I want to start and frame our conversation a little bit. I just have a few slides. I'm going to go through them very quickly. I hope we're all on the same page with this vision of wanting our land care practices to be clean, quiet, healthy, and sustainable. And that means doing it in a way that eliminates or at least seriously reduces carbon dioxide emissions for the health of the planet, reduces toxic air pollutants, including volatile organic compounds, particulates, et cetera, reducing noise. The noise produced by many of these machines, it's not just blowers, is literally deafening and very distressing to communities that are being subjected to them sometimes hours a day. And then there's other environmental impacts, fuel spillage, toxic non-recyclable waste. And then of course, we want to nurture and support our ecosystems. And many of the practices today are destructive. So this is not a simple problem. There's really a system going on here. There are manufacturers of gas equipment. Some of them have gone into electric equipment today. There's commercial contractors, municipal and institutional staff that do grounds maintenance. There's customers with their expectations, and there's a whole business infrastructure of dealers and distributors for gas equipment. And then there's a lot of things to consider that influence the dynamics between these different players: technologies, economics, labor supply, and of course concerns about health, climate, environment, and then aesthetic expectations that we have today. That highly manicured look that's not healthy from an ecological or environmental perspective.
Amy, we're not seeing any slides. I just want to make sure you know that.
Oh. I'm sorry about that. Hold on.
I think your words are telling the story
Yes,
pretty well,
they are.
but there you
Okay.
go.
So, okay, here we go. There's the vision. Here are the players, and there are the influences. Okay. What the future looks like for this industry is wholly different from what it looks like of an industry based on gas combustion technology, involving renewable sources of energy, electric motors, batteries, robotics, and so forth and so on. And so transitioning this industry really requires an investment, not only in the equipment, but in training, education, and so forth, in a way that's going to give cities, municipalities, commercial businesses a return on investment, and also please customers. So I'm saying it's not easy. It's a very conventional technology transition program. It's disruptive to this industry. There's a lot of barriers, that deep entrenchment in the fossil fuel based energy system, political and regulatory factors, technology barriers, the costs. We hear a lot about the economics and the upfront investment, and then entrenched behaviors. And then there's just a fairly low level of awareness of these issues and what it takes to make change. What we're seeing today, what we're going to hear from today, are innovators and early adopters who are really leading by example and can help bring others along to make this a broader transition. This is a technology adoption curve. What you see here are two S-curves. The one closest to the right is showing how growth in new technologies can happen over time, but we want to push that to the left so it happens more quickly. We do this through having leaderships and champions like our speakers today, influencers and models, and then making the business case, combining that with education and training. And then what we really need and don't yet have for this sector are those financial incentives, public-private partnerships, and increasing demand on the customer side for quiet, clean services. So I'd like to end there and move on to our speakers who are leading by example.
Thank you, Jamie. So I'll just introduce myself. I'm Rick Reebstein. I work with Jamie. I'm chair of the Legal Advisory Committee. I teach at Boston University. This event is a product of a class I teach at Boston University, for those of you who came in later. And without any further ado, I would like to hand it over to Christine Scalera, who is the Deputy Town Attorney in Southampton, New York.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me, and thank you so much for to Rich and Matt. I'm a BU alum, so I'm pretty excited about having the opportunity to do this with all of you today. And at the outset, I have to tell you, it's been, I was a councilwoman in Southampton for 8 years, and that's where I met Jamie. And it has been a pleasure working with AGSA, the Zone Alliance, in particular Dan Mabe, who I understand couldn't be here today, and Jamie from Quiet Communities. I actually met them through a constituent, as Jamie was explaining before, who had come to me in our town complaining about leaf blowing noise, and he wanted to go ahead and wanted me to sponsor leaf blowing legislation to ban it. And just to familiarize you with, if you don't know, the town of Southampton, we are a town on the east end of Long Island, and we seasonal community, notwithstanding the influx of residents after the pandemic who have relocated here. But I think because of the seasonality in the Hamptons and our reliance on tourism, our beaches, our farms, our open spaces, which really drive our economy, we have been significantly involved with advancing environmentally sensitive methods in all functions and aspects of town government. We have goals of net carbon emissions by 2025, zero net. We've been advancing several initiatives concerning water quality, discouraging the use of plastics, and we have a very aggressive open space acquisition program. We've done a couple of our efforts through legislation, but predominantly we have focused our attention on policy initiatives and implementing, adopting environmental plans, and then going ahead with implementing them. The conversion of gas-powered equipment to electric is one of the biggest initiatives that we did in this town, and we've seen some really, truly positive results, not only within the landscaping community where we got a lot of positive feedback from, but from residents as a whole. As I said, the motivation to make this particular change was that Jamie had come to me with one of our residents, and I really felt like we needed to do something to be proactive, as Jamie touched on earlier. Within our community, leaf blowing became just something that was increasingly causing people a lot of agitation. They were coming out to their homes on the weekends here, and it was just a constant drone, and they couldn't enjoy their homes. And the same thing was happening when they were coming, home from work to relax outside. It became impossible. And if you drive down any of our streets during the week or even on the weekends, they are lined with landscaping trailers and such. So it really became an issue here, and I had to do something. And Jamie came to me, and she offered me a multitude of suggestions and educated me on what the American Green Zone Alliance was about and what they could provide in way of assistance. And she outlined how that they would team up with me and by virtue of that, the town, and provide educational and marketing support to themselves. So immediately I did my homework, wanting to find out and understand what the landscaping community, because when we first talked about this, we knew there was going to be some resistance and pushback. And understandably so. It was kind of, I don't want to say it was new at the time, but here it was new. So I wanted to educate myself, and I wanted to come up with something working with Jamie that was feasible for the landscaping community to do, because this, it affects, as much as it has this negative impact on everybody, we want to cure that. We also wanted to make sure that it was feasible for them to be able to convert, because this is something that this is their livelihood also. So we were impacting a lot of people. And as legislators know, even the best intended legislation oftentimes has unintended consequences that we have to deal with on the back end. So I kind of wanted to approach this up front so that we knew what we were going to be, looking at. Some of the obstacles we face along the way, just first and foremost, obviously, as a legislator, we are part of a political body. So I needed the support of my colleagues on the town board. So I was one of 5 members on the town board. And while I was a member of the town board, the 8 years I served there, 6 of them were served as a minority member. And when I say minority member, I mean like 4 to 1. So it, conceivably could have been a big challenge. And some of you, to the extent you're elected officials facing that, you might have that. I was very fortunate and had really good working relationships with my colleagues. So as a result of that, we could agree to disagree on things, but ultimately we'll look good and the benefit of this for our residents. Everybody jumped on board, everybody was supportive. And I really was very fortunate to have that kind of relationship with them throughout the years. To the extent that we could do this, it was wonderful, and I thank them. Next, perhaps the biggest challenge that we made itself, that electric equipment just wasn't suitable for the kind of work that they did. It wasn't strong enough, it wasn't durable enough, it would be too costly, it would take too much time. So we realized that we needed to come up with a plan to be able to implement this, and there was no better way to go than doing it by example. So we definitely led by example. And what we did is we decided to use a town facility, and because we wanted to start with ourselves first, and thinking, I don't want to ask people to do things that we ourselves to be able to do ourselves. So we picked, in our case, it's called East Quad Village Green, and it was a small, like I would say like a pocket park kind of thing. It was surrounded by residences, which is good because I wanted them to see what they weren't hearing. And that's, I got 2 minutes. Wow. Okay. I'm going to rush through. Okay. So we set up the first park. It was the first American Green Zone Alliance certified park on the East Coast, and we were really proud about that. Press conferences, and there's some slides at the end that Jamie will show you. And I'm going to go really quickly and skip. So one of the things that we did that I think was very effective is that we got involved with what Jamie calls local champions. And in our case, we had a forum day, and we had demo days, and we invited, we got involved with a local bank and talked to them about underwriting some of these smaller local companies that wanted to do this conversion, no interest loans or low interest loans. We also teamed up with a local newspaper, Southampton Press, which is very popularly read here, and we had Green Business Spotlight Days, which really gave the business a lot of visibility amongst our consumers and the industry. And we invited other municipalities to come and test out our equipment also, because the idea is that we wanted to engage somewhere down the line in some cost sharing initiatives to bring some of the prices down, and just budgeting strategies. So we did this in 2017 is when we first started our program. And you can see that was one of our press conference days, and those are my fellow colleagues on the board. But we started the program in 2017, and I don't have numbers for 2019 and 2020 just because everything kind of got thrown off with COVID. Even though we continued the program, I just don't have a report for that. But as of 2018, we had transitioned a little over 50% of all our maintenance equipment from gas through electric. And just in that 1 year, we were able to reduce carcinogenic emissions by 9,963 pounds. We reduced greenhouse gases by 32,000 pounds. The noise decibel hours was reduced by 114,720. Our fuel consumption was down, our fuel costs were down. Just really very positive results in that 1 year alone. And one of the great things about working with AGSA and Quiet Communities for us is that at the end of all this, we got this wonderful report, which showed us what we had accomplished by the steps we had taken, what our goals should be, and where we're going to be going and how to get there. So it was wonderful. So leading by example is what worked for us. I know that with legislation, you can shortcut it, and it, I guess, sometimes gets the job done. I know that as a local municipal leader, very often, if you legislate, the only means you have to enforce that is obviously code enforcement. And I know in several municipalities I've been in, code enforcement is generally overburdened, understaffed, and crisis driven. So it's very hard to get the kind of change you want to see, sometimes just through the legislation. So we found leading by example was the best way to do it in education, and we're very fortunate. And I want to thank everybody for allowing me to speak. And I'm sorry if I ran over.
That's quite all right. And, you know, every speaker is probably going to have so much to say, so much value, that we're going to be either running short or running over this whole time. And I've received a number of questions in chat. I'm going to ask that you save your questions for the end of the panel, which there will be a little time to open it up again. So our next speaker is Stuart Welch from Mountain Brook, Alabama.
Hey, well, hello, everybody. I'm Stuart Welch, the mayor for the city of Mountain Brook. I'm going to take you on just because of time, really quick tour of where we are. So the next slide is going to be, pull that down. Okay. So Mountain Brook is kind of dead center in Alabama, just south suburb of Birmingham. You can see this, we're actually 13 square miles landlocked. Our primary revenue comes from property taxes, and we are shopping. You can see the green areas. There are 3 shopping villages, very unique shopping villages around a golf course. Everything else is primarily neighborhoods. We have 7 parks. This is just a look at one of our villages. This is English Village, and this is Mountain Brook Village. So you kind of get a flavor for what they're like. Neighborhoods, Mountain Brook is a very affluent community. It's got one of the top school systems in the country. This is pretty indicative. This is a neighborhood right outside of Crestline Village. Give you a sense of a lot of trees. We have rolling hills, really beautiful community. And we are proud to be the first city in the South to be awarded certification by AGZA. So we had really good success with that. And I'm going to get out of that if I can. Take that down. Yeah. So I'm sorry, this out right here. And so what I want to do is talk a little bit about the how I got there. All my best ideas come from somebody else. In this case, it was a resident, a local attorney, Clay Ragsdale, who I think is actually on this call. And he came to me with the idea, and of course I embraced it. And I'll tell you, the driver for me and the driver to get this through the city council was really how much we care about our employees. So I thought about, if I'm an employee and I'm going to have a 2-stroke engine strapped to my back for 20 years, that can't be good, much less the noise, but just the environment of that. And so I convinced the city council to hire consultants. So this was Jamie. And I think when you move into success, it was critical to our success that we have consultants involved. And Jamie and Dan Maid came in and they did an assessment of how we use our equipment. And they came up with a very detailed report that showed how much carbon emissions were out there. And it was a big, big number. And so when we went back to the city council, again, one of the drivers was, let's start with our people. We've got these employees that are there. We have 240 employees, but the people in Parks and Rec and the people that are Public Works, they're the ones that are using this equipment. And to think about the tons of emissions that they're standing in for a career. And so we all agreed to do a test case, a beta case, buy a basket of electric equipment, and you had to sell it to the employees. So these are people that I think kind of naturally were resistant. And I literally just went to them and said, listen, guys, I need y'all to approach this with an open mind. Y'all need to give it a fair chance. And if it doesn't work, we won't do it. We'll go right back to the gas equipment, but y'all need to give it a fair chance. And they have really good leadership in those departments. They supported us in that. And what we found out is they really, really like it, particularly in the villages. They don't like mixing gas. They worry about spilling gas, on the roadways in our villages. and they love just being able to swap out a battery and do that. So when I talk about the, so far it's been really great getting the certification, the American Green Zone Alliance certification. We actually got a really big article written by the Washington Post. They sent somebody down there. He stayed almost a week. It was really good press, really good way for us to PR that. When we talk about the challenges, I think the biggest challenge is actually in the gas blower. So the gas blower is more powerful than the electric blower. And what Jamie and Dan did was they taught, it was really important that we had training for our people, taught them when to use electric versus when to use gas. So we can use electric, I don't know, 85, 90% of the time. Some of the time you're having to use a gas blower. The technology is growing exponentially. My guess is within the next 5 years, certainly within the next 10 years, the gas blowers are going to be every bit as powerful. I'm sorry, the electric blower is going to be every bit as powerful as the gas blowers. So our workers have really liked it. It does take a champion. In this case, it was more Clay than me. I'm very much a champion, but I have so many things going on. Clay's always coming back to me, picking up the football that I put it down, putting it back in my hands. I'll run 10 yards, I'll drop it again. He'll come pick it up. You definitely have to have somebody in there who's pushing. I am all in, but I'm also in the city of Mountain Brook, we're all volunteers. We have a city manager form of government, so we're all volunteers. So I actually have another business as well. So the challenges, I think the future steps would be, we have gone to commercial landscapers, and we started with one that was a vendor for the city, and we started with one that was actually did my lawn, but was one of the dominant players in our city. And we just asked them, we just said, this is what we're trying to do as a city, and we're asking you to outfit a truck with electric powered equipment, and we want you using it in our city. And they both raised their hand and said, yes, we're in. And so so the plan is now to move to the other businesses that are in our city. Thank you. The other businesses that are in our city, and ask them to get on board. And we're actually using the Chamber of Commerce to help us do that. So I know I'm running very close out of time. I'll do any follow-up questions in the panel Q&A.
Yes, speakers on this panel, please stick around for a little bit. So, and I hope all of you are watching chat. A lot of interesting comments in chat. So I'd like to turn it over now to Sasha Nahr and Lisa McDonald of the Larchmont Environmental Committee that they co-chair.
Hi, I'm Sasha Nahr, and I co-chair the Village of Larchmont Environmental Committee with Lisa McDonald. Larchmont recently passed a full ban on gas-powered leaf blowers, the first municipality in the Northeast to do so, and Lisa and I are here to tell you how we did it. First, a little background. Larchmont is located in Westchester County, New York, about 20 miles north of New York City on the Long Island Sound, with a population of about 6,000 residents in a 1.1 square mile area. The Environmental Committee advises our village government, which consists of a mayor and 4 trustees, on environmental issues affecting the village. It has been consistently active since the early 2000s, running a successful campaign to ban the use of plastic bags, Green Screen Film Festival, Green Expos that focused on sustainable landscaping, and more. A big issue dating to at least 1985 was the proliferation of gas-powered leaf blowers for lawn maintenance. A summer ban was enacted in 1995, but we were having trouble with enforcement, and blowers were still being used despite the law. 5 years ago, we decided to prioritize a new campaign with a fresh approach. The reasons for regulating blowers had to be compelling. Beyond the annoyance factor, newly available data showed that blowers caused harm in 3 main ways: by 1, negatively impacting human health, including, by the way, the health of landscape crews, which raises the issue of environmental justice; 2, interrupting activities of daily living and degrading quality of life; and 3, damaging the ecosystem. We set about strengthening relationships and building support for our campaign in the community. We identified stakeholders such as elected officials, residents, police, and Landcare companies. We spent 3 years reminding our residents and the landscapers we could reach of the reasons for our summer ban. In the spring, we distributed door hangers to every house in Larchmont, all 1,500 of them. You can see a sample of our door hangers here. We produced and distributed flyers in English and Spanish. We developed a presence on Facebook and Instagram. We regularly contributed to our mayor's newsletters and our committee's email blasts, and we maintained a presence at all community events. Realizing that effective enforcement is essential to attaining code compliance, we built an ongoing collaborative relationship with our police department. Our police handle complaints, engage with landscape crews, and provide us monthly reports of complaints received and actions taken. Together, we design notices for police to hand out to landscape crews and homeowners. Unfortunately, we have not yet connected as productively with Landcare companies. We hope our AGSA certified green zone programs will be a catalyst, and you'll be hearing more about that from Lisa. After 3 years of education and reinforcement of our summer ban, we were ready to present our case for a full ban on gas-powered leaf blowers and the restricted use of electric blowers to spring and fall cleanup periods. We made compelling presentations at 3 public hearings, including contributions by invited speakers, a pediatric pulmonologist, a local college professor working from home, 2 local high school students, and a green landscaper. We also ran a short petition drive with resident signatures supporting a full ban on blowers. The new code would apply to everyone, including municipal crews, and importantly, landscape company owners, landscape company crews, and property owners would all be subject to fines. The cleanup periods would apply as soon as the code was enacted, with the complete ban on gas-powered blowers taking effect on January 1st, 2022. The new code passed unanimously in September 2020, and the final transitional fall cleanup period ended yesterday. As of today, gas-powered leaf blowers are a thing of the past in Larchmont. I think Lisa is going to speak now.
Hi, so I'm Lisa McDonald. Together with Sasha, I co-chair the Larchmont Environmental Committee. And as Sasha explained, we started with increasing levels of regulation so that residents and land maintenance companies could get accustomed to the ban and give them time to try new practices and see what works best for each property. In addition to regulation, our village is leading by example. Until recently, even during our summer ban, gas-powered blowers were sometimes used by village employees in public parks or hardscapes, and that felt hypocritical. So the first thing we did was we made sure that our DPW and parks maintenance were contractually required to follow the new code. And then with support from Sustainable Westchester and Quiet Communities, we established Westchester's first AGSA certified green zone in one of our municipal parks. For the Larchmont green zone, this meant no 2-stroke engines and mulch mowing. Mulch mowing is a simple, no-cost shift in practice that can be the first step towards more sustainable maintenance. Leading by example in combination with regulation is vital to success. We believe municipalities need to successfully model code and ideally go even further than code requires. Larchmont also passed a native plants and trees resolution for municipal plantings, and we do not use pesticides on municipal properties. Having passed and modeled the ban, we're now moving into our implementation phase, where we have a 3-pronged approach. First, we're educating our residents and landscapers. In addition to our village-wide communications, our committee will continue to run our annual grassroots delivery of door hangers to residents. And these will include code information, tips for speaking with your landscaper, and separate flyers, such as these shown here, that share code information, alternatives to blowing, and those flyers for this year will include information on the upcoming AGSA landscaper training. Secondly, for landscaper training, in early 2022, we're hosting a free AGSA-led training for all Westchester County's registered landscapers, with a special focus on those working in Larchmont. And at this event, AGSA will train crews on the use of electric equipment and alternatives to leaf blowing, and they will make introductions with electric equipment representatives. And finally, we're meeting with community groups and coalitions. Several years ago, we built alliances and networks within community groups, and we relied on them for support and publicity for our food waste recycling campaigns. Now we are looking to these same groups to ensure the success of our leaf blower ban. The community networks are within our schools, houses of worship, social clubs, the Chamber of Commerce, and realtors. The Larchmont Environmental Committee will meet with each group, explain the new code, speak with their landscapers, and answer any questions. This collaboration ensures that our large properties and visible organizations enthusiastically support the leaf blower code and adopt other green land maintenance methods like the healthy yards approach of avoiding pesticides and opting for native plantings. So in closing, I would just say that we're often asked to recommend sustainable land care companies, but to date, we've not compiled a list for this because we really hope that residents will stay with their current landscaper and encourage them and everyone in our community to move towards the adoption of greener practices. And that's our email.
Wow, thank you. I just want to comment that so far, all of these presentations are totally meeting my goals, my hopes, and thank you. And I expect, can you quit share so we can move to the
Yes.
next one? You have to stop share. And I fully expect the same from what's yet to come. After Michael Cosciati, Mayor of South Pasadena, speaks, we're going to have a brief period for questions, and I'm going to ask you to look for the button on the bottom that allows you to raise your hand. I will call on people in the order in which they raise their hand. Michael. Mr. Mayor.
Richard, good morning, Richard, from the historic city of South Pasadena in Southern California. It's an honor to be here today. Jamie, thank you also. So let's go to our first slide. It's a picture of our beautiful city of South Pasadena looking north to the San Gabriel Mountains and east. South Pas is a part of LA County. We're about 8 miles north of the city of Los Angeles. We have a population of about 25,000, very culturally, economically diverse community. I'll go on next slide. I want to also get my staff here, Tamara and Mary helping this presentation. So AGSA, back in 2014, we met with Dan Maid and working with Jamie Banks, and we worked this out. We became the first actually green zone park in the United States. And this is the park right here at Garfield Park. That's the celebration. Our city manager, the Landcare staff. And that was about 2015. One park with approximately 9 acres. Next. And so here were the challenges. Let's go to the left. If you looked at bubble top left, the growing pains, as you know, it was pretty much like the technologically, like the electric car industry. Our first 60-inch riding zero-turn mowers had 3 batteries. Took several hours. You had to interchange the batteries. So it was difficult, but we wanted to do it. The contractor, of course, we hired outside contractor, Landcare. They fought it. They'd never done this before. The industry's been doing the same thing for dozens of years. If you go down to the right, financial, where do you get the money to get this? Because those mowers are really expensive. Concerns from the council, most of the council members had not done this, didn't understand electric equipment. Thank God I came from an industry in high school and college where I did oversee lawn maintenance for a local church and school. And on the left, you had pushback, not only from the company, from the executives, and from the workers. So a lot of challenges we're juggling, but go to the right. Thank God the South Coast Air Quality Management District, the largest air pollution district in the nation, had an incentive program. And we looked at that, and plus they had a demonstration program where you could use the equipment for several weeks. Let the workers try it out, the company try it out, no risk to them. Top right on this secret of success was changing, it says contractor really changing the contract. We took our contract, the outside contractor, and just changed the language on one page of the scope of work, say all your work in this scope of work will be done with electric equipment at this park. As other speakers have indicated, so true and so necessary. AGSA, American Green Zone Alliance, Jamie was involved. AGSA education and training, the gardeners, to the residents, events, etc. At the bottom, staff support, staff jumped in supporting, support from the council. They were very environmentally conscious. We're a very sustainable community, like the others spoke before me. So putting all this together in 2015, it was a success. Next. So on the left, that's Garfield Park. It's our signature 9-acre park in the city. It's beautiful. And this is by our tennis courts. It's a riding mower right there. Here's one of our workers with backpack, edger actually. So it took a little while, but they bought in at the one park, and we did it for a year. And then we said, okay, we're going to change the contract. The entire city of South Pasadena, 3.3 miles wide, We'll now transition the second and third year to all electric equipment. Next. And this is one of our several parks, Orange Grove Park, where there's baseball and soccer. So we began to transition, and within a year or 2 years, the entire city by 2016 was now maintained by all electric lawn equipment. Next. Then we didn't stop there. We own a municipal golf course, 18 holes. It's got driving range, it's got miniature golf putt-putt, mini bar, etc. So we started that transition, and whatever equipment existed, we could transition leaf blowers, handheld. Some of the large reels we couldn't. We got a tier 4 that was compliant with California Air Resources Board. But this is really exciting. On the right, you see that greens mower to Jameson. What we did was it was having problems. So we went to local renewable repurposing battery called Big Battery. And we took used Tesla and Nissan Leaf batteries that have been used up in the car, but were still good, put them in this, and it's been running for over a year, cutting the greens at 6 a.m. with no noise to the residents. So exciting proposal for repurposed car batteries. Next. So not only their public works staff, as indicated with others, they converted their legacy blowers, which had tape all over them, to all electric, and they're doing some work on our local street right there. Next. So then we said, okay, it's time for the ordinance. So you see right there, there's a typical mom and pop gardener with all his gas and blowers and weed whackers, hedge trimmers, and lawnmowers in a little pickup truck in our neighborhood. On the left, there's a battery and gas. So we created an ordinance. We went through our commissions, took a year, too long really, but the commissions looked at it, sent it to the council. We looked at it a couple of times, improved it. So just passed it a few weeks ago, but it becomes effective. We're going to do a whole year, because some of the electric equipment, as you know, compared to gas blowers, you can get one for $600 gas, but you're paying up to $1,500 for electric blowers. So a lot of our lawn equipment, mom and pop gardeners are economically disadvantaged. So we want to take some time to move it in. So enforcement will begin October 1st, 2022. Violations are first a warning, and then we have fines next. So there's a big outreach going on. We're going to show you a little. Is this a video coming up? Got a video of some of our. Okay, that'll come up soon. So right here, we started outreach on the left, top left. You know, the video. Let's see if we can do the video or not. We can skip it if it doesn't work. We have a video of one of our events at one of our parks. So this is an outreach where we set up a big event at Garfield Park for families to come. We had a bicycle event too, music, all the bicycle groups, neighborhood groups, air quality district, and just demonstrating all the equipment, leaf blowers, electric bikes. And we had, there's a demonstration. We even had a race between a bicycle electric bike and an electric riding lawnmower, which you're going to see in a moment. Guess who won? But so it was a several hour event. People had a lot of fun. There's one of the riding lawnmower. Here's the event. Oh, electric bike pulled ahead. So we had several hundred people. Exciting event out there. Big success. And this is really the way to roll it into the community. There's a bike after the event. We all went on a bike ride. There's a fire department, city manager, leaders, state senators, Dan May. Why is this happening? Are there exceptions? We'll go over that in the questions. Next slide. So again, we're reaching out on the left, top left. That's an individual mom and pop gardener. He has 5 accounts in South Pass. He was my gardener. He hasn't transitioned. In the middle, another big event. We've had several events at our parks, really transitioning this to all the community. And on the top right, that's really having meetings with the workers. This is where Dan May gets down, takes them in class and says, here's how you operate the equipment. I saw a question in the chat about how loud electric blowers are. These guys know how not to operate them at 100%. They're in the park operating at 50%, blowing the leaves, everything. So it sounds like a vacuum cleaner, not a leaf blower. Next. And this is what's going on right now. That's my gardener, my buddy Kay on the left with his electric Ego blower. And if you look on the far right, that's my car, the Tesla, and the Tesla is plugged in, but Kay's battery is plugged in. So while he's doing the leaf blowing, his battery for his electric lawnmower is getting charged. In my house, we call it an opportunity charge. My dog's sleeping because the leaf blower is making no noise. The lady in the middle, she's got a different type of manufacturing equipment. I never knew she existed. I was walking my dog and she's using electric equipment. So a lot of gardeners out there using it. Bottom middle picture is Suntech. That's their van, all electric equipment and chargers inside. Next. The future. The future is now, because here's a Ford F-150 Lightning. And look at the back of the truck. it exports power. So you can charge your handheld equipment or your tool or your house. Next. So spreading the message all throughout the South Coast Basin, 4 counties, 17 million people. Here we are in Orange County, Southern California, city of Fullerton, with college districts, community college districts, high schools, middle schools, homeowner associations. Dan May, we're demonstrating the equipment. Next. So the challenges. Without incentive funding, we just ran out of our target. Thank you, Richard. We just ran out of our target airside grant. $3 million, that's used up. But we need the manufacturing. We've got to put pressure on them to really come down with some incentives and breaks for the gardeners, because $1,500, even though it's an upfront cost, a little more expensive, they'll make it up and save money on gas, oil, maintenance, filters, spark plugs, etc. It's still a big upfront cost. On the right, here's the other challenge. We're meeting in one of our local elementary schools with the one of the largest Landcare companies, if not the largest in the United States. They maintain the school district, is a different company that maintains our city. And we had a whole hour trying to get the school district to convert. They fought back. So after nearly a year, at least they started the handheld transition, but their contract's coming up. If they don't change, we're gonna have others that will bid on that contract. Next. Here's why this is so important in kind of closing. On the left, I've got a diagram of your kids, your parents, your grandparents, our neighbors, our animals actually too, your respiratory system. So your respiratory system, it brings in the oxygen, it takes that oxygen to every cell in your body, in your bloodstream. Unfortunately, when we've got this equipment, gas powered, leaf blowers, hedge trimmers, lawnmowers, etc., it's out there. And now for the first time in California, lawn equipment has now surpassed small vehicles as a source of pollution. So you're not only inhaling oxygen, you're inhaling nitric oxide, carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, and it's diesel, particulate matter, which passes your blood-brain barrier and goes into your brain and all your organs. Why is this important? Here's my team. This year is in 40 years, I've been coaching soccer nearly. High school, college, youth. This is a youth under 16 boys. I've never had more than one kid with asthma, maybe every 2 or 3 years. This year, for the first time ever, 3 of those boys you see, 3 of them had to bring a nebulizer or inhaler to practice or the game every week. And several times I had to pull the boys off the field because the pollution air from the local fires, pollution from the freeways nearby, and lawn equipment, and do something about that. So this is personal to us. It's about our families, our friends, our communities, and that's it. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. So I'd like to move directly to the questions, and Len Resto has his hand up. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Richard, very much appreciated. This was excellent. You know, I had a question for the mayor or any of the panelists. I'm a councilman in Chatham Borough, New Jersey. We had tried to get landscapers to buy into this. And our first invitation, we got 3 out of 20 invited landscapers. And we did it at 7 a.m. with breakfast provided. And the reason we did that was at 8 o'clock, they're out there doing their thing. We then tried something in the evening with, you know, light snacks provided. We got 2 out of 20. How did you go about getting as many landscapers as you did to come to an education session?
Can I take that?
Please.
Sure.
Okay, hi Lenny. And so what we did in the city of South Pasadena was kind of part of our rolling out the ordinance. And we told all the homeowners, we sent out flyers. We had our public works department go door to door the days before and days of the event. As you said, they can't start before 8 o'clock. So myself, other council members, staff, were riding our bikes, cars, door to door. And we also had this on all our social media accounts, our great staff right here. Mary and Tamara got it out on a daily post. And we said, and part of our ordinance is the homeowners are going to be responsible on a tab for this violation of the ordinance. And we really got everybody involved. And so we've had some really great outreach. And actually, unfortunately, as the incentive was running out, that first big event, we had about 28 gardeners, and almost everyone wanted to buy some equipment. And when we called the dealers, they said, we don't have money. And plus, it's still on the ships out docked off the coast of Los Angeles. So you know something, that when you put the pressure on the homeowners, they got involved. I just got a call from a homeowner 2 weeks ago, Ellen. No, and social media, hey, our gardeners, we want to get involved, do one at the Little Eddy Park here, a little 1 acre park. So we had about 13 gardeners out that day with only 1 week's notice.
We're going to go through the same thing again, but incredibly, this is where there's a silver lining to COVID, because the people who were at work and never heard the noise, never smelled the fumes, all of a sudden are working from home and they're on a Zoom call, and that's when the leaf blowers show up to do their thing, and they smell the fumes and they now realize that, hey, maybe there's a better way. So thank you, Michael. That was really appreciated.
But Lenny, let me just follow up, just what you said. All of you are council members, and we have issues that come before the city. When this issue came before council, many issues, we have 10 on this side, 15 on this side. Out of 51 comments, and many expressed just what you said, didn't express it, they demanded it. 49 of 51 supported this. One was a nut, and one just said modify it. We've never had such support. Thank you.
I'd like to quickly ask if other speakers want to respond to that first question. We've got a nice lineup of other questioners. So if we can keep it brief.
Yeah, I would say that we just went one-on-one. So we picked the two largest landscapers and we went with them, and we got an agreement from them right off the bat. I think when you appeal 1-to-1, and if you ask for a meeting, you're going to get it, particularly if you're the mayor. And they raised their hand and said they would do it. And then we're going to use them to go to other landscapers through their businesses. So we're going to go through the people that are buying the services. And then my local landscaper, the guy that does my yard, he does several yards in my neighborhood. I went to my neighbors and said, would y'all support this initiative? And would you be willing to pay more if we had to pay more? And they all said yes.
You all have a lot of nice friends. Daryl Warner, would you unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you. I'll turn my picture on too. Thank you very much. This is awesome. I love this. And my question is, I mean, all these are great points that you're making. But my question is, what do you do? How do you help the landscaper get rid of the ice equipment? What do you do there to sort of keep those, to get those things out of circulation? How can we help them do that? Because they've obviously got big investment in this stuff. Seems to be there should be a way to recycle this stuff and help the landscaper, the local people. So thank you again. This is an incredible program. Appreciate it.
And for those of you who don't know, ICE is internal combustion engine. Jamie, I was just going to ask you to talk about your exchange.
Oh, no, I just wanted to make that clarification. The exchanges, I'm sorry Dan isn't here because he's done, I think, over 100 exchanges, but these are, subsidized purchasing events where there are incentives provided from a granting agency, government source, manufacturer, or other private source to bring down that initial upfront cost. And commercial landscapers, residents can do this by scrapping, another piece of gas equipment that they have in exchange and then benefit from that discount going forward. And the nice thing about those events, if they're on site in person, they can also be educational events as well, kind of like Michael was showing, make a day of it, have vendors, have education and materials and so forth. So we did one in Concord, Massachusetts 3 years ago where the manufacturers and then the distributor brought down that cost, and then the local utility kicked in a rebate on the electric bill so that the cost was lowered about up to, I think, 35% to buy a residential piece of equipment.
And I think, didn't you also combine that with bulk purchasing? So you got the cost of buying electric replacements down somewhat? No?
Mhm.
That was part of it as well.
Well,
Linda,
that's another strategy, yeah.
yeah, and they go together. Linda Barnett.
Hi, thank you so much. It's really wonderful to see. First of all, I represent an initiative in a small town on Eastern Long Island. And I was going to say it's really wonderful to see mayor and city leaders behind these efforts. We're in a situation where we were successful this summer getting some sort of first step restrictions on gas-powered leaf blowers enacted, with slightly stricter ones just for summer months next year. One of our big issues, and I guess this is a question for Lisa and Sasha, is that we did not, the biggest part of our effort was convincing the mayor and the trustees. We found that, and so I'm just wondering, I mean, I'm so jealous that you've got, when you get the mayor behind something, it's kind of not a no-brainer, but it makes things a lot easier. So maybe you can kind of speak if you had any challenges in that regard to that.
Well, I'll take that. What I found is that the mayor, all the city council, they love the people that work for the city. Our people have been there, most of them 20, 30 years. Once they become an employee, they never leave. And we truly, truly care about them. And, for me, I painted a word picture. Think if it was you, and for 20 years of your career, you walked around with a 2-stroke engine strapped to your back. And when Jamie and Dan came out with their report, and I can't remember what it was 5 tons or 50 tons or something of pollution in the air. That pollution was all surrounding those people that are our workers. And so for me, it was a pretty easy sell. And then we moved from that to the community. I mean, everybody's been, in our village or in a village and had a blower go, and you're smelling the fumes. Well, you're breathing the fumes. That's what's really happening. And then of course, noise is, I don't know if it's secondary, but it is the difference. But here's the big problem with a electric mower is you don't know it's going on. So people don't recognize how great it is because it's so quiet. So it's almost like you have to point and say, this is electric. So we're actually putting signs on our trucks that say we're using quiet equipment. So people actually stop and see that and recognize that, oh, I'm not hearing anything. And that's how you get there. But I think, you appeal to them about the employees. Most of them know some of the employees. The city council and the mayors all know them. And if you care about people, that's the angle for me.
Lisa?
Sure. No, I echo that. I mean, I think you have to look at what is the compelling case for your community. So whether it's the environmental justice piece, as was just said, the public health concerns, the environmental concerns, or the noise pollution, you pitch it on all different angles. And then I would also just say, you have to look at what's politically feasible in your community. We've had a seasonal ban for 25 years, and it's been well received. So in some cases, you do need to build up. So whether you start with a summer ban, when in April 2020, our mayor used her power of the state of emergency powers to temporarily ban all leaf blowers, having read the Harvard study that linked poor COVID outcomes in areas of high pollution. So she read that independently and, almost as a surprise to us, said, we're going to ban leaf blowers temporarily. It was very well received in our community. People working from home, beginning of COVID, students at home, everybody appreciated the break in noise. So I think, if you can show that something's politically going to be well received, then you'll get further in your efforts.
And I would just add, besides the environmental justice issue, which I think is an incredibly compelling case, Larchmont has a lot of families and a lot of young children. And one of the images that our previous co-chair brought to our committee when she wanted to re-engage with this issue of really getting proper enforcement on leaf blowers was the fact that she lived right across the street from a nursery school, and the kids in the morning would be being dropped off at school, and the leaf blower guys were right there blowing the lawn, literally at the face level of these kids in their strollers as the parents pushed them off to school. So the kids are at the level of where those blowers are, breathing all of that in, and she said there's got to be another way. So I think if you really can just repeat the compelling case with scientific data and understand, how this is really affecting our community, hopefully the powers that be and then mayor and trustees will come around.
So I have to say, we have another panel to get to. So I see all these wonderful questions lined up, but we have time for just one more, and please keep your question and answer brief. Karen Bray.
Hello, thank you for taking me. My name is Karen Bray. I live in Newton, and I spearhead a group called Newton Calm. I was curious, I'm just very confused because what Sasha just said, if we replace those gas-powered leaf blowers with electric ones, those kids will still be blown at. And there will still be environmental degradation, still pollutants blown into the workers' ears, eyes, lungs. And so I'm just confused that there's such a huge push for electric, to transition to electric, but there are so many ways it is just the same, that they still blow in your face. I haven't heard quiet electric blowers. They are a little bit quieter, but they are not much quieter. My vision is to have a community where we help each other rake our leaves, which we do to some degree here, and a community where teenagers are hired in huge groups to rake leaves. But I just don't see that electric leaf blowers are the answer, and I'm just confused about that. Thank you.
So I think that could be an entire day's worth conference. And I would like to invite one of the speakers, or perhaps Jamie, to just give kind of a brief response. And if you don't want to, I'll take it on, but we're going to have to move on.
Well, I could
Jenny?
just say
Go
quickly,
ahead.
Larchmont was not intending to ban all leaf blowers when we went into our study to present to the board. But for the very reasons that Karen mentions, we realized that, we can't, we really need to recommend banning all blowers and not just gas-powered leaf blowers, because electric blowers also cause a lot of harm. So this is why actually Larchmont has banned all blowers, but they did feel they needed to give a concession for a spring and fall cleanup period. And we had recommended just a fall cleanup period, but the board said they felt a spring cleanup was also necessary. So we have 1 month in the spring and 2 months in the fall that electric may be used, and that is it. None other times during the year, and no gas powered. But I agree with you, Karen. There is a lot of the same issues.
Thank you for raising that important point. So we need to move on now. I'm sorry to have to do that, but we have another panel at this point where we're going to talk about things on a larger scale than at the community level. We have people from state government, and our first speaker is Elizabeth Schmidt, who is a legislative aide with California Assembly member Mark Berman. Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If you could just let me know if you can see. Yep. Awesome. Okay, thank you so much. So my name is Elizabeth Schmidt. I'm a legislative aide for Assemblymember Mark Berman. He couldn't make it today, so I'll be presenting on his behalf. And thank you so much to Jamie and Boss and your team for putting this great presentation together. So Assemblymember Berman serves in the California State Assembly representing Silicon Valley. He and Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez authored EB 1346, which is California's new ban on the sale of new small gas-powered engines in California. And like a lot of the local elected officials, this was an idea that just came from a constituent. And so I'll just get right to the problem that we're solving for here. Small off-road engines, which we call SOAR in California, are some of the most highly polluting engines in use today. As you can see, using a commercial leaf blower for 1 hour emits smog-forming pollutants comparable to driving a car 1,100 miles, which was really staggering to learn. And this is especially important given California's air pollution problems. We're home to 7 of the 10 most ozone polluted cities in the US, and several regions fail to meet federal air quality standards. So here, Mayor Cacchiotti touched on this really alarming statistic, but we can see that smog-forming emissions from SOAR surpass those from passenger cars this year in California, and will actually be double those from cars in 2031 without intervention. So as California looks to transition to a clean energy economy, this is a really important sector to electrify. So I just want to give a little bit of the context leading up for this. I think Mayor Cacchiotti really captured a ton of local investments and local work and training on the ground that really our locals were spearheading for years leading up to this bill. And some additional context, you may recall Governor Newsom issued an executive order for reaching 100% zero emissions from new cars by 2035 that also called for reaching zero emissions from off-road engines by 2035. Our Air Resources Board in California, CARB, has been regulating emissions from SOAR since 1990. And so it's just that those emissions aren't zero. And so landscaping is 69% of the small off-road engines in California. So the intent of our legislation was twofold. One, it was to put a deadline on regulators to take action to move to fully zero emission. And second, it was to acquire funding to help workers with the transition to electric equipment. And so there's two pieces here. The bill directs regulators to phase out new sales of small gas engines by 2024, but it does allow for some flexibility based on technical feasibility. And I want to be really clear, because this is pretty different from the local angle, is the bill is not a ban on use. Everyone can continue using and operating the equipment that they already have or that they purchased before 2024. The compliance burden is on manufacturers to produce only zero emission products for sale in California beginning in 2024. And this will allow businesses to gradually phase in zero emission equipment as their gas powered equipment breaks down. But they won't need to transition their whole fleets all at once. And of course, the second part of this budget or of this effort was securing $30 million in the 2021 budget to help create an incentive program for small businesses. So Mayor Cacciati, we understand, and the state is coming in to support all of these efforts with more funding from the state budget. So stakeholders and supporters, this is just a few of our supporters, a ton of support from the environmental community, from health-based groups like the American Lung Association. We engaged with stakeholders in the outdoor power equipment industry, in the landscaping industry, and we received technical support from the Air Resources Board and from AGSA, which I know has been mentioned today. And I do really just want to lift up the work of AGSA, of the city of South Pasadena, and really showing us that this is possible on a commercial scale, being on the ground, training workers, and really being leaders here. So a quick timeline of our process on the state level. Assemblymember Berman and Gonzalez introduced EB 1346 in February of this year. It went through all of our committees and passed out of the Senate floor with the bare minimum number of votes needed to pass, and that is with our Democratic supermajority here in California. It was signed into law by Governor Newsom in October, and like I mentioned, our regulators had already began a rulemaking process to move this category to zero emissions, so they were able to act very quickly to implement the bill. And just last week, the Air Resources Board did approve the 2024 date for new sales of most small off-road engines, with some limited exceptions, but when it comes to landscaping equipment, you can only buy zero emission in California come January 1, 2024. And in January, the Air Resources Board will start setting up this incentive program to distribute those 30 million in incentives, and that will be coupled with outreach. We expect those financial incentives to, become live for small businesses in probably June of 2022. So I just want to touch on the environmental and health benefits. That, as has been mentioned, and I think articulated really well, these engines cause asthma, they cause lung disease, and they put workers at higher risk of cancer. So we luckily were able to really quantify the health benefits here. So this will prevent 892 premature deaths from cardiopulmonary causes, 438 fewer emergency room visits for asthma, and an estimated 8.8 billion in monetized health benefits by 2043. Because it is a gradual phase out and people can continue using their equipment, it will take time to see the majority of this equipment turn over. But by 2035, we estimate that 93% of this category in California will be zero emission. So I just want to end with some closing thoughts. So this is a technology forcing regulation, and we recognize that it's a major shift for the landscaping industry. We understand that this change will not be painless, but as policymakers, these are the difficult choices we have to weigh if we're serious about reducing our dependency on fossil fuels. Second, we really can't underscore enough the importance of resources to ensure that small businesses and workers don't get left behind in this transition. And that's why securing the incentive funding and then really monitoring the allocation of that funding to make sure it reaches those who are most impacted is a really important part of this effort, as well as all of the training and education that groups like AGSA and South Coast are doing. And lastly, I just want to note it's so important to center public health and environmental justice in this conversation. Pollution affects all communities, but the workers who use gas equipment are breathing in fumes and air toxics that put them at higher risk of cancer, and that's not something that we should accept. So it's important to approach this from an angle that doesn't punish workers, but finds ways to really support the transition. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and my contact is up here if anyone would like to reach out directly.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So save your questions for the panel that we'll have after this government. And I just want to mention that the Clean Air Act right now preempts states from taking action like California has taken unless we get permission to follow California.
Right.
So every single person on this call, not from California, should take note of that issue. That's a future agenda for all of us. Can we follow what California has done? Okay, thank you for hearing that. And I'd like to move on to Nina Oroville. Now we're at a county regional level, not state. We need to be working at all levels. We'll talk more about that. Nina Oroville, Sustainable Westchester.
Hi, everybody. Am I sharing my screen?
You are.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm the Executive Director of Sustainable Westchester, and I'm so thrilled to be here with you today, including with some of my wonderful colleagues from Westchester, who you've already heard from, and to share information about the sustainable landscaping initiatives that we have recently launched at Sustainable Westchester. So first, hold on. Okay. Sustainable Westchester is a nonprofit organization committed to helping achieve New York State's highly ambitious climate and environmental goals, environmental justice goals here in Westchester County, New York. We're a membership organization that serves 45 municipalities, including Westchester County government itself. And our approach is to partner with our member municipalities to leverage the unique role they play to accelerate adoption of clean energy and other sustainable practices. We do this by developing and implementing a whole portfolio of programs that our municipalities and their communities can participate in. These include community energy programs, including Westchester Power, which is the first program of its kind in New York State. It supplies electricity, the vast majority of which is 100% renewable, to over 110,000 households in 28 municipalities in the county. We have other programs like Community Solar that increases renewable energy generation and provides savings to over 2,000 households, businesses, and organizations. And in addition, we have programs that focus on electrification of buildings and vehicles that enhance the efficiency of our electricity grid, that reduce waste, and as we'll talk about now, that promote sustainable landscaping practices. I should note that in Westchester County, there are a number of other organizations and initiatives doing really important work that relate to sustainable landscaping. And you'll see some of them are listed here, and we want to call out our friends and colleagues of Healthy Yards who do fabulous work throughout the region promoting native planting and other environmentally sound landscaping practices. So in Westchester, you heard about the experience in Larchmont with the complete ban on gas-powered leaf blowers and still ban even on the electric leaf blowers. You can see that a lot of municipalities have taken some sort of action to regulate or restrict gas-powered leaf blowers. They're in a range of different ways, but this activity has really increased during the time of the pandemic, when concern about pulmonary health has been very acute. And as more people have been working from home and learning from home and have struggled under the condition of the noise of leaf blowers. There are actions that are being pursued at the state level as well, legislative bills that have been put forward. We'll hear from Senator Liu shortly as well about additional efforts that he's working on, but these two that I'll highlight, one of them is designed to provide rebates for electric landscaping equipment, and the other is designed to phase out the sale of new gas-powered equipment by 2027. And so these are part of the landscape of what's happening in the region. So Sustainable Westchester's approach to engaging in this work, first of all, it's based on a partnership with Quiet Communities and AGSA, as we've heard about the terrific work that those organizations are doing across the country. We have partnered with them in order to be able to bring their extraordinary expertise and services to municipalities in Westchester. And our approach has been to focus on a number of different components, including education and outreach, the AGSA Green Zone program, professional certification and training, and equipment recommendations and trade-in events. You've already heard about the work that the Village of Larchmont did as the first Westchester County certified, AGSA certified green zone, and the town of Rye has also debuted a green zone as well. And we are working with a host of municipalities that are interested in doing the same thing. So the list of green zones is certainly going to be increasing. I should say as well, a big part of this, of the green zone program with municipalities involves training municipal crews, and the municipalities providing expert guidance on the equipment that they should purchase to replace gas-powered equipment and how to adapt their practices to best use that and to maximize the return on investment from the investment that's significant in transitioning over to electric. Another significant component is all of the is outreach to commercial landscapers. And this is something that we're doing through our municipal partners as well. And it's designed to help these businesses located in these communities to successfully transition to electric practices. Not only does that bring benefits, obviously, to the community itself in terms of reduced health impacts and reduced environmental impact, but it also offers the opportunity for commercial landscapers to be able to compete really successfully in an environment that is transitioning to electric landscaping. And this work includes training and certifications, workshops, and equipment exchanges. So to sum up, our goals here are to allow municipalities and others to successfully lead by example, which we think is really critical. And you've heard about this from a number of municipal leaders. To reduce greenhouse gas emissions and particulate pollution and related environmental health concerns. And as has been referenced also, there are a lot of environmental justice issues related with these health impacts. To support commercial landscapers so that they can operate successfully by embracing these practices. This is really important, particularly in the context of the restriction on gas-powered equipment that many municipalities are adopting. We don't want landscapers, particularly the mom and pop businesses, to be left behind and not to be able to operate successfully in that environment. And then finally, we are very interested in helping to develop a comprehensive model that can be successfully implemented throughout New York State and beyond to support this transition. So that's it for me. I want to mention that my colleague Neha Danik, who's on this call, is the person who leads our sustainable landscaping work. And we're both happy to be in contact with anybody after this event. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to move immediately to our next speaker, Michelle Sicolo, because I know she has to leave at 1:30. So Michelle.
Thank you, Rick, and I appreciate you taking me out of order. I'm State Representative Michelle Sicolo from Massachusetts, and I am thrilled to be here today, and I'm just so impressed with all the speakers who have come before me and all the work you're doing, and a great appreciation to Jamie and Rick for all of their work in this arena. I've sponsored a bill this session, House Bill H868, and I'll put a link in the chat, which asks the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs here in Massachusetts to create a grant program to help municipalities transition to all electric, an incentive program, and authorizes funding to be used for zero interest loans for small businesses, so to help their transition to electric. And I got into this work. My community I represent Lexington and part of Woburn here in Massachusetts, and it's an affluent part of the state that is also working on noise-related issues. Prior to being elected, I was on the select board here, which is a little like being a mayor, but part of a board that does the executive branch work, a volunteer. And I was the liaison to our noise committee. And it was working on a bylaw to ultimately restrict and then ban leaf blowers. That bylaw came to our town meeting this past fall and passed, but was met with great resistance after it passed by the community, which then has brought forward a petition to have a ballot question to overturn town meeting's action. So in thinking about what I anticipated would be a lot of resistance from communities, which we only have a handful of communities in Massachusetts that have banned leaf blowers. In thinking about this, I was considering how do we help make this transition more seamless and support our small businesses, but also support our communities. And I was also very concerned about the fact that in communities like Lexington, we were already beginning pilots. Our DPW has done some work by using electric equipment, not just leaf blowers, but larger pieces of equipment. And they are beginning to demo this equipment and use it. But it's a lot easier for a community like ours that has a robust budget to be able to pay for such, the expense, which still is not a one-to-one cost comparison. It's still more expensive to buy electric. And I am concerned as a statewide, now that I'm an elected official at the state level, I'm concerned that our low and moderate income communities don't have that same opportunity, which is partly why I wanted to create this grant program to support them in their transitions as well. Also framing this very much in the context of Massachusetts's brand new climate roadmap bill, which we passed in March, which will get us to net zero. It has us mandated to get to net zero by 2050. And in order to get there, we're going to need to convert absolutely every piece of fossil fuel powered motors and engines and equipment, all of our transportation system, our homes, et cetera. And I don't think we can ignore any sector in the environment that uses fossil fuels. So in that context, I felt this was really important to elevate. And I will say that I'm getting great reception from my colleagues. When people hear me talk about this, though, it's still very new. They're not really considering the issues, and they're not focusing on what I consider to be very grave environmental justice concerns, particularly worker health. The toxic chemicals that two-stroke motors emit, and even the four-strokes, and the noise impacts to hearing is just unconscionable, especially when so many of our workers, they're low and moderate income workers, they're immigrant workers in the landscape sector primarily, and they're still low paying jobs, and it's really not right to have those workers put in such harm. So in that context, that's why I created the bill. I'm also pursuing other ways to move this forward. I believe that, so our executive branch is in the Republicans' domain at the moment, and our legislature is Democratic. And I think it's important to sort of work across the aisle here and try to convince the executive branch bureaucrats in energy and environmental affairs colleagues to really look at doing this on their own. They have the capacity to do it without legislation, but I thought that the legislation would be an opportunity to talk about the need and push it along. And I'm using every other opportunity, such as the ARPA funds, whenever possible, to submit amendments to try to advance this as well. And just for scope and context, but my back of the envelope calculations suggest that if we appropriated 1.5 million and paid for just the differential in the cost of the electric equipment, so the amount that it exceeds a gas-powered piece of equipment, every city and town in Massachusetts would be able to get about 2 pieces of equipment from a grant program of that size and scale. So that's the context. Certainly, I'm hoping that this can move forward sooner rather than later. And I'm glad to be here today and supporting all of you in your work as well. So thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you very much. We're sorry you won't be able to be around for the questions, but we'll relate any to you that we can't answer. Thank you so much for your work.
I'll put my contact information in the chat again and the link to the bill. And again, thanks so much for having me today.
Oh, that's great. And now we have, do we have Senator Liu from New York State, or is it you, Shang?
I'm sorry, Richard, he is not on yet. Give me a second. I will check on him in a second.
Those are some nice state office buildings you got there behind you. As an old state employee myself, I'm impressed.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Do you want me to provide some, I guess, beginning information?
Yeah, why don't you start talking about this, if you can, about the legislation.
Okay, I think he's coming on in a moment, but
okay.
I'll explain our bill. We essentially have a seasonal ban on gas-powered leaf blowers. We had started that particular bill sort of as a step towards encouraging people to develop different ways of going about their lawn care. And I believe a lot of the issues were already covered in terms of why leaf blowers are particularly bad, such as the noise pollution and associated health concerns, the pollution from emissions, the pollution from blowing particulates in the air, and the fact that there are just simply better ways of caring for your lawn that are better for the environment, better for the ecology, and better for people in general. So that is the reason that we particularly went that method. As you've seen with other bills which require wholesale changes of equipment, there's a lot more support and education that needs to be involved. With a seasonal ban, though, there's just very little reason to be doing anything in the summer months, other than when you don't have a lot of leaves that are being blown about. Give me a second.
Was that him trying to call you before?
Yeah, I'm trying to see what if he's able to get on or having some difficulties. Okay.
Do you want us to move to questions and then come back to you?
Yeah, if that's possible, that would be great.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that, and then people don't have to wait. So the questions period is open for the moment, and Paul Manuz, you're the next in line.
Oh, hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. I just want to say it's great to be here. I'm getting a lot of great information. And I am from East Hampton, New York. I'm actually the chair of the Energy and Sustainability Committee. And we have just implemented a ban that just started this last season. And we're looking to, work on that and maybe modify it to a complete ban sometime in the future. But I just wanted to say, the feeling that we have here is that this shouldn't be, a lot of people take it as a competition between municipalities. I think the sharing that's going on in the chat is great, because some people, just with the flyers that were shared, we can use that in our own instance here in the town. And I think there's no like step-by-step for how you could implement this in your community. Every community is unique and has its own opportunities and challenges. So I just want to thank you again for having this. My only question is, where are the gas blowers? If I could go back to Larchmont, where are the gas blowers that are not being used anymore going, or where did they go? What happened to them? Because they went somewhere.
Caroline Barenbaum, you look like you've got an answer. Well,
Caroline is one of our Larchmont Environmental Committee members and has a lot of information.
This was the first day ever that gas-powered leaf blowers have been permanently banned from Larchmont. So right now, they haven't gone anywhere. They're on the trucks of we don't know how many landscaping companies work in our tiny little community, but we have the names and addresses of over 100. On my block, which is 1 block long and has 16 houses, and some residents do their own little landscape activities, we have 8 or 9 different companies who come every week in season, and most of them have 1 or 2 gas blowers going. So we have no idea what's happening. I assume they'll continue to be used in other communities, because these people don't only work in Larchmont, they work in the surrounding area. And we also don't know yet how much pushback we're going to have now that this thing is real. And there are a lot of things we just don't know, but we'll let you know when we find out. And the other thing, completely unrelated, and then Sasha, I will be quiet. if those of you who decide to borrow our written materials, which Sasha and I have carefully designed over the years, we'd appreciate it very much if you would send us copies of what you are doing with them and let us know how you're using them. Because we're very happy to know that
Great
they're
point.
useful, but we want to keep track.
Paul, I also want to just say, we have had a summer ban on gas-powered leaf blowers since 1995. So if landscapers were planning to use any sort of blower in the summer, they were allowed to use electric, and they may have already purchased electric for that purpose. So given that we had a transitional period and we publicized this a lot, we were really hoping in this past year that our local landscapers would start to make that transition. They will have likely made that transition if they were already using some sort of blower in the summer when gas was not allowed. But we'll see what's going to be happening with those blowers, those gas blowers.
And I will just throw in that the oil and gas mixture is going to be a problematic hazardous waste when you're disposing of this.
Oh, yeah.
And the regulations will vary from state to state, but generally you have to deal with it that way. Terry Joshi. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to add, in California, a lot of the local exchange programs that are run by South Coast Air Quality Management District and other air districts have scrappage requirements. So you go to the dealer, you get a discount for zero emission equipment, and then the dealer works with commercial scrappers to actually scrap that equipment. And so we can ensure that the materials are recycled properly, and we can also make sure that that equipment is actually being phased out of use.
Another reason to be grateful for California. Thank you. Terry Joshi.
Yes, thank you. Hi. Actually, my question has quasi been asked already. Yonkers in Westchester County is about to embark on exactly this program. We're going to have rebates for developers, for landscapers on their equipment and trade-ins. And literally it's in the most nascent phase, but I'm going to pick my brain of my Larchmont colleagues shortly offline. So really the issue is though, what are we doing about landscapers who work in a variety of municipalities, want to retain their gas-powered equipment because they are using it in other municipalities? And how do we ensure that they don't use it and risk by violating our new ordinance, et cetera, in Yonkers? And we have actually had a ban since 2007, a summertime ban. And again, we want to build up from there. So I'm not sure. Larchmont and Yonkers are about 20 miles apart. Somehow we have to create a link so that we can have the same municipality rules for everyone. That's a really big issue. And I'm hoping that Nina will be able to handle that for Sustainable Westchester and link us all together with that.
Can I?
Yes, if you could.
Yes, if you could speak to that too. We've had this issue for a long time because even just Little Larchmont is part of a tri-muni town, and
correct,
two villages and the town that's not the big town all have slightly different regulations, so that the landscaper may be allowed to do something on one side of the street and not on the other. And we have had such difficulty trying to make them all the same. But to me, the answer is to have the county level do it. And I really think we will have to get together and work on a single county plan. But we've been told by the county executive that they don't have the authority because of the way each of our municipalities' governance system operates. So, it's a big conundrum, and we'd love to work with you.
So I'm glad you guys made that connection. We now have Senator John Liu on with us. So please, Senator, tell us about what's happening with the whole state.
Well, thanks very much for having this meeting and for including me in this discussion. I also want to thank our students. I guess the class is on the Zoom as well. That's the brain power we have behind the effort?
No, we have one student from the class. The rest of them are in the middle of exam week, and you know what that's like.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. All right, well, I feel like this is kind of a no-brainer issue, right? I have a bill that specifically bans the use of gas-powered leaf blowers through the summer months. The ban would end on September 30th, so that presumably the fall cleanup can be done with the traditional gas blowers. It's just a bill, so obviously open to suggestions and modifications. But I think the issue is becoming more and more clear by the day all across the country. There are more of these bans coming into place. Nice to hear about the experience in Larchmont and perhaps in conjunction with some of the surrounding towns. We want to extend this to the entire state of New York, where people do use these leaf blowers. And I have lots. I live in a pretty residential community here in Northeast Queens. We've got an abundant amount of gas-powered leaf blowers who I have to say, they're generally quiet, except right around the same time that your Zoom is about to start. And then they go hog wild with these gas-powered leaf blowers. You can't even hear yourself think, much less hear what other people on the Zoom are saying. But obviously the problem primarily to me is one of health, the public health concern, with not only the fact that these motors are gas driven, there's no filter, there's no muffler of any kind. It's just raw internal combustion, spewing out the worst kinds of pollution you could have. I believe that the emissions, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the emissions from a late model vehicle, automobile, are less harmful than the emissions from some of these gas-powered leaf blowers. And that's gotta bring cause for concern for residents. And so that's just a health aspect. And then, by the way, you have all these other particles not coming from the engine, but are being blown about all over the place, sometimes into home windows, never the customer's windows. It's always the neighbor's windows. And then, of course, you have the noise pollution. You've got all sorts of undesired effects. And the worst of it is that there are now alternatives. There are plenty of alternatives to these gas-powered leaf blowers. Maybe there's a cost impact in the short run, but I feel like it's just a matter of time, hopefully as quickly as possible, where the alternatives become more economically feasible in the long run. So that's my bill. $100 penalty, actually might be different level penalties for the usage of these. Oh, okay, $100 fine if somebody is using their gas-powered leaf blower during the months of, I guess, from May 1st to September 30th. And then after California set its precedent, I was very pleased to see it happen in California, although I hate it when they beat us to certain things. But anyway, they did it, so it bolsters our argument to do the same here in New York. And my colleagues, Senator Kruger and Senator Harcum, they have introduced measures that seek to achieve the same kinds of goals. So that's a quick rundown of something that I think doesn't even need a long explanation. It's pretty simple and clear cut why we need this ban. And happy to take any questions or suggestions on how to make the bill better.
I'm going to exercise my host prerogative and ask the first question. How is the bill doing? Is it going to pass?
Well, the legislative session begins in January. We just put it in last year, and so I'll push for it. We've got my legislative director, Shang, is on the line. Do we have an assembly sponsor, Shang?
Yes.
Okay, so we have an assembly sponsor, so that's good. And then I'll be pushing for it in the legislative session coming up. Now, even though I think it's pretty clear cut, it's not necessarily a slam dunk, because I do represent a community that employs many of these landscape companies. And the landscape companies will always say to their customers, well, I'm gonna have to increase your bill. But on the other hand, there's near perfect competition, at least in my area, between the landscape companies. So it's not like any company can just unilaterally increase their price without having to deal with competitive pressures. I've got lots of other colleagues who in the suburban and even more rural areas, which they may have more concerns, but I'm certainly going to be pushing for this bill. Is it going to pass, Richard? Well, I don't know. You tell me what tomorrow's lotto numbers are going to be. No,
Okay.
I'm just kidding. It's not like the lottery. I'm going to push hard for it to get passed. But all of you who have respective, all of you from different parts of the state, it certainly would help if you contacted your local legislators, both senators as well as assembly members.
John, may I?
Good.
Chang,
Thank you,
go
Sasha.
ahead.
May I jump in on that just really quick? I mean, one
Please.
of the major issues and the major arguments that we've had, which was sort of some of the discussion I was having, was, why do we need to pass this on a state level when the local municipalities could do it themselves? Maybe tailor different approaches as needed for their neighborhoods, right? And there was no precedent for anything that was happening on a state level. So I think that California, doing what they did, even though they beat us to the punch, does kind of provide us a little bit of a pushback on that particular line of argument, which was somewhat of a difficult, argument to counter.
And plus what Sasha just said, I think it was Sasha who said that, you have this restriction in Larchmont, but the landscapers are not just working in Larchmont. They're, working in, forgive my geography, I guess Mamaroneck and Rye, presumably they're working in those areas too. So if one township or municipality passes it, it doesn't, the landscapers will have to have different equipment. They're gonna hem and haw, and it's just better to have a statewide standard. And besides, it's an environmental and health issue, which in my opinion should never be done just at the local level.
So thank you, representatives of New York State. I'm just going to jump to one point that Jamie and I have reserved for the closing remarks, which is that we need a whole government approach, action at all levels, small, regional, state, and federal. So I would move to the next person in line, Daniel Fink, but I don't see him. Daniel, are you there? Okay, Daniel, we'll come back to you. Sonia, you are next up for, can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm a member of the DeWitt Advisory Conservation Commission, and thank you for a really helpful program. I just put in the chat that New York State really should have some teeth behind this. We passed the environmental amendment to the New York State Constitution, which is clean air, clean water, and healthy environment for all. It was a slam dunk pass, and municipalities and on the county level should get behind this. And hopefully the Assembly and Senate bills can go forward with that. The Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act also should have some type of teeth to get this passed. It's an environmental justice issue, which puts priority with things like rebates, gives guidance on decommissioning gasoline powered equipment and electrifying. I recently spoke with someone also about electric dual battery use. So things like school districts that may not have electrified their buses yet can look at those electric buses that aren't being used to power up their electric landscaping equipment. So time to get creative. I didn't hear anything from environmental organizations like Sierra Club, climate action groups, and hopefully they can help us in this as well. So I guess that's not really a question because other people have been piping in along the way, but just some thoughts.
We are not restricted to questions. We can make comments, and thank you for those.
Thank you.
Maria?
Yes, hi. There's been a lot of talk about the health consequences, and I just wonder if anyone has had experience involving their health departments. I think in Massachusetts, health boards, community health boards have a lot of power to pass ordinances. And I just wonder if that has been at all helpful.
So I'm going to ask Jamie Banks to weigh in here because I know she can answer that. And because we are nearing the end of this, getting into the closing remarks phase anyway. So Jamie, please.
Yes, so Maria, thanks for asking. There are boards of health that have made statements on the dangers of gas-powered leaf blowers. Lincoln, Massachusetts is one. Lexington, Massachusetts is another. The state medical societies of New York and Massachusetts have both come out with statements on the health hazards. In fact, the one I know in Massachusetts, there's quite a detailed report that goes along with it, you know, reviewing all of the medical literature and the evidence. So that's a quick answer.
Jamie, would you like to make other closing remarks? Because it is 1:50 and that's what we have on the agenda.
Yeah, sure. So we just wanted to wrap up. I think where we ended up was on gas-powered leaf blowers, which is an egregious tool. That said, there's a lot of other pieces of two-stroke equipment powered by two-stroke engines, basically all the handheld tools, hedge trimmers, string trimmers, chainsaws, et cetera, that cause a great amount of pollution and noise. They're just used in different ways. Our approach, we certainly support reasonable regulation for gas leaf blowers, recognizing they're so egregious, but we also take a holistic approach to trying to move the whole industry away from fossil fuels. If you're interested in climate, it's really the mowers that are putting out carbon dioxide because they're cleaner. They emit most of their combustion products in the form of carbon dioxide. As opposed to the two-stroke engines, which power these tools, most of their carbon comes out in the form of air toxics that we've talked a lot about today. So that's something, you know, just to keep in mind when you're making those arguments. There's a great deal that can be done by transitioning. Ags and quiet communities, in the work that we've done with communities, in total, those communities have reduced almost 400 tons of toxic pollution, including more than 20 tons of ozone-forming pollution, 1,300, 1,400 tons of carbon dioxide, and then of course noise, fuel spillage, and everything that goes along with gas equipment. I think in wrapping up, we need to address this industry in total. The business model that exists today is kind of, at least at the commercial level, is very much this mow, blow, and go. It's centered on speed, on efficiency that is enabled by these gas tools. Simply replacing them with electric is not going to do it in the same way. There needs to be retraining. There needs to be manual tools like Karen recommended that supplement and a change in practices so that they can get that efficiency, but in a different way. So, and generally we need a broader transition to a more ecological behavior in our society. It's challenging, people resist change, and we just have to be united and strong to make this happen. And we're hoping, you know, with your support and then broadening our efforts that we can make this happen over the next several years. Rick mentioned a federal program. One of the things, we work in other areas of noise and related pollution. Aviation is one of them, and then other areas, construction and so forth as well, road traffic. One of the things that we're doing is trying to get EPA and the Congress to reactivate a federal noise control program. You probably know noise is in many cases related to fossil fuel-based sources. You know, traffic, outdoor power equipment, construction, and the like. You know, by bringing attention to that, we're hoping that we can accelerate efforts at the federal level and get something going. So we have an open letter to the EPA administrator. We're going to be sending a letter to Congress along with a proposed budget to reactivate that program, regulate some of these sources, which will reduce not only noise, but the kinds of pollution that we're seeing. And then I'd really like to thank everybody again, be you, our student Matt, who's been terrific. I have a couple of colleagues on this call, Jill Bellinger, Julie Colehouse, that have been wonderful and been contributing to our efforts over the years. Rick for his participation and moderating this conference, and really all of you for participating and for your enthusiasm for this. So I think that's what we have today, and it's really exciting. We're seeing things move, and hope the momentum keeps going.
Wait, don't go. That's just the beginning of the closing remarks. Though those were big ones. Matt, our organizer, would like to say a little word. Matt?
Sure, and I'm so pleased today to see this community come together. And I know that this will be not only the first of many, but the first of a multitude of community engagement around this topic, because this is so important for worker health, the environment, as well as community health. And so I really am pleased for the participation today, both from our speakers, but also from our members in the chat as well. I think it's really encouraging from a student perspective to see a lot of engaged individuals, especially people in the community that are a part of this solution as well. And I want to thank all the participants as well for attending, as well as being a student at Boston University. We're also advocates as well for cleaner, quieter communities in the future. So I want to thank both adults, and also I want to lend some encouraging remarks too, that students are actively working for the solutions as well. And my colleagues at BU, both in the class and beyond, are part of this change as well. So we look forward to working with all of you in the new future as we continue our success in our graduation in school, but also join a community that's both engaged around sustainability as well as environmental change. So thank you all for attending this lovely event. I appreciate all the well wishes and the nice comments in the chat as well.
So thank you. I'm just going to say a few things and then we will end on time. So we have talked about mostly action at the community level, but we've also talked about regional and state. And I just want to say a few more words about the federal level. As Jamie explained, we are trying to get the noise control program reestablished. We've actually submitted a petition to EPA to do that. But I also think it's important for people to think about the Clean Air Act and to ask themselves the question, how did that preemption of these little things ever get in there? The preemption for mobile sources was so that car makers didn't have to make 50 different kinds of cars for 50 different states. Now take that logic and apply it to these little small off-road engines. Do we really need to do that for them, for this particular industrial sector? So how did it get in there? And what do we do about it being in there? Now, even though it's there, we can now follow California if that process goes the way it ought to go. You may recall that Trump wouldn't allow California to do what it's always done. So we need to look at the Clean Air Act. We need to make sure it works the way it's supposed to so we can all follow. And we need to take another look at the Clean Air Act and say, what can we do under the Clean Air Act to accelerate progress in clean air? So noise, clean air at the federal level. Let's continue our work, the brilliant work that we heard about today at the community, regional and state. Let's not ignore the federal level as well. And I want to just say one word of hope, which is that I think, maybe this is a fantasy, but I feel like we're approaching a tipping point. And it's not just us coming together with what looks like a national movement, but just think about those eco landscapers that are coming up there. This is creating a demand. And as they increase in number and show that they can provide services at comparable cost, comparable price, it's gonna switch pretty fast, I hope and think. That's my hopeful prediction. And all I wanna do is ask you all to give everybody a big hand. Thank you so much. Great speakers. We'll be sending out a link to this to everyone who registered. And keep in touch.
And wishing you all a happy holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy and healthy New Year.